It's cool. It's
All
cool.
right, we're here again. This is the second week in a row that we've been on the internet chatting. It's a new record.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to say we're here with our friend Eli and we're ready to talk about demons and other stuff. Eli, thanks for being with us here tonight. Or if people don't know, Eli is on the Instagrams under Redwetskeleton, so you can follow Eli there and see all manner of creepy things.
But with
Ugh.
that said, because we're just gonna do this introduction again.
We sure
Mhm.
are.
Let's. Are people ready for me to just do that?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Boy.
People are ready. All right. All right. It's starting. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a miniature wargaming podcast from the people behind the blog Between the Bolter and Me. I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Adam Wire
Hey, everybody.
and Greg Wire.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, nice to have you. And excitingly, we have our friend Eli, better known as Redwetskeleton, who was the architect of some creepy demonic entities for our recent Vastarian event in Houston, helped along with Bill Ford to run and plan everything. But yeah, really happy to have you here, Eli.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you all for having me. Wonderful as always.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad we're getting to chat again. We had the I guess I don't know exactly when this episode of the podcast will be released, but we previously, like the evening after the Vastarian games had finished, we interviewed you briefly in that,
Mm-hmm.
which my guess is that will be released a little bit before this one. But we have so many things percolating and stuff we want to post to try to best recap the kind of crazy maelstrom of things that occurred in those times that we're not entirely sure how it's all going to go. But
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine that this will probably be a better exchange of words than the one that we did after Vistarian, because Johnny and I were both completely sleep deprived and mentally exhausted, and felt like we had just gone the distance with a champ, in the boxing ring, just had the shit beat out of us. So I'm
yeah,
sure we were very nonsensical. I don't remember any of that, honestly.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot.
It's a lot of
It
talk
was very
about
fun though. I remember that.
It
Lucero and
was
stuff.
also, yeah, we
I think I
talked
talked
about
about
and
the
made
baby.
fun of Lucero a little bit. It was also
Yeah,
very hot. It's very
it was.
hot in that
Oh,
Airbnb.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess with that in mind, not it's been, yeah, about a week since the event or a little bit over.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, being able to reflect on the event and, you know, yeah, just reflect on it, think back and how it went. Do you have any things you'd like to say about it or takeaways that might lead us off into just more discussion?
Demons.
Oh man, demons. uh, Man, I don't know. I had such a good time. It was wonderful meeting so many people that I've talked to or admired their work on the internet for years, and then finally getting to meet them. Uh, it just really is there's nothing really like it, and I feel like everybody talks about that. Like when you ask them about an Inq28 event, but that's the biggest thing. It's just oh shit, meeting your online friends, and it's just yep, kind of like in real life friends too, because it turns out you're all like the same shit. So
Yeah, and a lot of
it's
us
really
have
really cool.
been communicating for a long time or have seen
Mhm.
each other a few times, but it's not like we live in the same town or whatnot. So
Yeah.
this events like this are often times where we can see
Mhm.
people we communicate with frequently but don't actually get to see in the flesh. And yeah, because I think we talked with Isaac or Weirding Way recently on the last podcast, and he even kind of mentioned it. Like, yeah, this is the only time he plays games and such. Is at like little events like this, and honestly, that's similar
Mm-hmm.
to us as
Yeah.
well. So like, it's hard to separate that joy of just the people, which in some sense, I think my wife even will often ask after stuff like this, like, "What was your favorite part about it?" And don't just say the people.
Yeah,
It's
that
like obviously that is like
I'm
kind
like
of the
great
core thing,
friends.
but
Yeah.
it is true though, just because it doesn't come around that often, and this was the first event like this that we helped run,
Mhm.
and that in itself was pretty fun to be able to help collate and bring together our friends and so forth and people we've
Yeah.
admired, and like that in itself was fun. Like a lot of the people have been involved in different things, and there's obviously connection there, but they weren't all brought together in a single group like this, and that's fun. And the
Mhm.
fact that it can spawn and like cover so many different groups of people and such is just fun. It's a fun way to bring all these creative minds and passionate people together.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that and like just cathartic. Like
Mhm.
I think Johnny and I like working in secret for months, just like only showing you all and Bill and each other what we were doing, and even then, like rarely checking in because we both bit off way more than we could chew. And
Well,
for some reason, the only people who didn't know that were us.
yeah,
Uh,
it's funny cuz like trying to plan it, and like part of why we were hesitant to run something was just recognizing from the things we've been to and like how slow we generally work at stuff. We like right away recognized this would be something that we would struggle to ever do and just keep putting off. So
Mm-hmm.
the
mhm,
fact that Bill like was really gung ho and wanted to do it, it's like okay, this seems like it would be a good pairing, and he would help push us
Oh
um
yeah.
to do it.
mhm.
But even with that and like all the stuff he did, there was still the thing like to make it really culminate in something, we do want to have these like additional centerpieces
Yeah.
and such as like the lighthouse, like the whole
Mhm.
most of the setting was kind of built around this lighthouse imagery and stuff, and it would have been a bit of a letdown to just
Not
not
happening.
have something like that.
Yeah.
And similarly to like the demonic entities you created to like not have them, it would have lacked some of that like extra punch of like wow, things are devolving here, and like that was always sort of a feature of
Mm-hmm.
the lore and narrative stuff that I put together about like this all encompassing, encroaching darkness. But
Yeah.
that's not something that was easily represented in just sort of quote unquote the day to day models and like the stuff that we were creating and such. But like,
Mhm.
how does that get realized in a model sense that can be engaged with all these other participants? And the fact that
Mhm.
we like you and Johnny were so willing to take this on and go with that vision, but then incorporate your own and take it to your own places, like was just so awesome, I think, for us to witness it. And it was fun just to see it grow. And like you mentioned, a lot of it, like even we didn't really have a full understanding of where it was going or the status of it, which I
Mhm.
guess in some sense was unnerving at times, but I feel we had faith in y'all and were just excited to see where it ultimately ended up.
Mhm. I remember showing you, the baby, for the first time, and you were just like you just couldn't stop smiling. You were just like, "Oh my god."
Well, and
Like
some of the initial photos and things, and even like showing it like briefly on like a chat like this,
mhm.
um, it was hard to get a sense of the scale of a lot of your creations. And it was really only when we were there in Texas that
Mhm.
we really could truly get a sense of that. And I tried to capture some of it in pictures from the games, but even that was difficult because the scale of them it's like on a different scale in some sense from most like 28 millimeter
Oh yeah.
models. So it was in itself kind of a challenge. I
Mhm.
wish I would have had somehow had an opportunity to do like more of a studio type Photoshop or not Photoshop, like photography session with some of them, and maybe
Mhm.
someday we could do that,
Oh,
um,
absolutely. No,
which would be fun. But and towards this notion of things being kind of a surprise for us, like it
Mhm.
was cool that even you still kept kind of working on it throughout like the days of the event to the point that for the majority of even the participants, it was a
Mhm.
surprise. A lot of the stuff was still a surprise when like the last game was played, which itself is pretty neat.
Yeah. That was not intentional. That was again, I bit off way more than I could chew. But I knew what I wanted them to look like, and they're still not like done. I still have so much that I want to do to like really make them look like what I want them to look like. But it's mainly just like further smoothing out skin tones, more just detail. The main like ideas are there, and that was really what I
Hmm.
was trying to like. If I could like lock in the main really fucked up concepts that I was trying to express with like each of them, they would do the thing that I wanted
Hmm.
them to do when you saw them. Just from here on, it's just like the stuff that I add, it's just like it's only gonna get worse because it's like clearer to see what it is.
Hmm.
You already knew. You already knew what you were looking at, and you already hated it. So,
Well, so maybe for our the listeners that might not be as familiar with some of this, um, when was it that we put you to work at making creepy demonic entities for the purpose of this event?
I honestly I don't know. I don't know when I was just like, "All right, I've started to work on demons," but it was not very long.
I kind of feel, yeah, we had start early on in the process. We started a Discord chat between you, Johnny, Bill,
Mhm.
and ourselves that we'd kind of brainstorm about stuff. And throughout some of those sessions, eventually, I think, kind of got to the point where like it would be cool if we could start to incorporate some demonic entity stuff in a subtle way to then ramp it up. And
Yeah.
like it became clear that like you were kind of excited about the prospect of exploring that.
I was
Mhm.
Um,
frothing at the mouth because I have been looking for any excuse whatsoever to make any demons. And like for the longest time, I was like, okay, it'll be 30K. I'm gonna make my demons of the Ruin Storm. But then the rules came out for them, and I was like, this doesn't really play the way I want. And then I stopped playing with people because it's just better to play with my dudes at like, maybe once or twice a year. I just have way better time. Uh, so I didn't do that either. And then it was just like, well, Adepticon came up, and the next thing I know, we need some demons for Vastarian. So
And I
I
will
was ready.
say, yeah, and the demons for Vastarian, like it wouldn't have been the same if they had just been like standard GW demons, because I sort of feel like for the most part, well, a lot of those models are pretty cool.
Mhm.
I think everyone's seen them a lot, and they certainly don't have a visual impact anymore, or they very rarely do.
I think a lot
Well,
of them
and
end up feeling caricatured too.
Yeah.
Like this
But
is
yeah.
the blood one. This is the rotting.
it would feel a little bit, I don't know if lazy is the word, but for a setting that everybody has spent so much time coming up with unique interpretations of the Imperial Creed and not just using the stock imagery from Warhammer 40,000 books, if the demonic incursion was largely just stock
Like a
imagery
bunch
of
of like
demons,
plague bears or something. It's like,
Yeah.
ugh, no.
Yeah.
not
What were they doing there?
Yeah, and because that was a part of the setting, like we wanted it to be still kind of extravagant and out there, but
Mhm.
to be able to show it could be that by looking at people who were faithful to the emperor.
Yeah.
Like we didn't want it to just be like, oh, to quickly go to like, well, I have an Inquisitor and I have the evil Inquisitor, like the
Yeah.
mustache twirling evil guy. Like we wanted to be able to be truly to really emphasize and show like this is the grim, gritty 40K setting that people think about, but
Yeah.
often don't really see in the glitzy
Well,
codex
I
books
mean,
and marketing stuff that you see now, and to be able to have a more refined, focused setting, but still be able to show that it can still be on its own exciting, so that if there was going to ultimately have some chaos there, it wasn't because, like, oh, and secretly one of the cults was actually worshiping the corn and like a throne of
yeah.
skulls.
All
And
the skulls stacked up in a pile, and they were just like, "Man, I love all these skulls."
Just
because
love
like
And
it.
I love it.
it's still 40K, and like the whole thing was kind of
Mhm.
centered around making an astropathic beacon, so that very much is like involving the warp. So like warp entities and stuff are there, so like there had to be some of that, but we didn't want it to just boil down to standard chaos bullshit. And
Mm.
also towards that, and I know chatting with you over the years, and maybe this has even come up in some of our other podcast interviews with you, I don't quite recall, but I know you've often kind of chatted about the idea of wanting to explore Slanesh in a way that isn't so puerile and I don't know, in your face, like this is Slanesh.
Yeah.
There's the mono boob, and
Yeah.
there's some long tongues and stiletto
It,
shoes.
it,
I don't
it'd
know.
be it'd be really good, like for like the god of excess. Like if your favorite ice cream was vanilla, like if you're like, man,
Yeah.
vanilla is the best fucking flavor I've ever had, then GW Slanesh is very excessive. You're correct. Uh, I love mint chocolate chip though, so
Yeah, me too.
it gets
That's the
wild.
best.
Um, I need it to be a lot more than just that. And I don't think the only time I've ever seen like art that I really think nails chaos is like there's some really fucking amazing Adrian Smith art
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
like the third edition or like 3.5. I love that Chaos Codex. That was one of my that's when I started my Black Legion army, like way back when. But the artwork, absolutely, I was like, this is my vibe.
Well, and because you've made some cool Emperor's Children that were much creepier and
Mhm. And they,
excessive than other stuff, which much more captured some of the Horus Heresy, like Fulgrim and some of those
mhm.
novels that did, I think, a better job of looking at Slanesh from the vantage point of excess. Like it didn't just have to be like, oh, we love sex, let's have
Yeah,
orgies. Like it might be
I,
through
I love it.
painting or music or all these things, and like that is more interesting. And
Yeah.
I think
Have you
it's
all
nice to
read?
see you work with that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nah, you're good.
No, thank you. I absolutely that I feel like that's probably what I'm going to be working on. Like now is probably just kind of working on my demons and working on my Emperor's Children, and then whatever else I want until I get like pulled into whatever I need to be working on to like for the next event is probably right around the corner. But I feel like people probably will want demons at their events, so I'll just keep making demons for a little bit. But shit, I was gonna say something. Had to do with Emperor's Children. Oh, I don't know if you've read Angel Exterminatus, but
I have not. I started to read it, then got pulled away. That's the
it's
one that whereas like Perturabo's trying to find some MacGuffin
yeah.
kill
Essentially,
weapon something.
yeah,
And maybe
Fulgrim
Fulgrim
is
becomes the
trying to
snake
convince
Fulgrim or something.
yeah, Fulgrim's trying to convince Perturabo that there is like a super MacGuffin gun. And he's like, yeah, you gotta have this MacGuffin gun. Only you and I can do it, bro. And man, if there is anyone you could like should trust less than Fulgrim, it's like Erebus, and that's it. But
Yeah.
like that's it. Like even Lorgor's more
Yeah.
trustworthy. Like Fulgrim is just Yeah, but yeah, that's when Fulgrim becomes a demon prince, and a lot of people don't like that book. But I thought that the depiction of how Fulgrim becomes a demon prince, now that's my kind of Slanesh shit. It's not very sexual, unless what you think of as sexual is not sexual to most of us. It's
Yeah,
like
okay.
way out there.
Who
Uh,
wrote that?
I want to say it's McNeil
Yeah, because he
because
wrote Fulgrim, I know.
yeah,
What's the
I want to
what's
say
the
it's
book's
Graham
name
McNeil,
again? What's the book's name
Angel
again?
Exterminatus. That's the name of the MacGuffin. Yeah, it's by
Yeah.
Graham McNeil. Yeah, the
Okay.
name of the MacGuffin is the Angel Exterminatus. And spoilers, it's just Fulgrim being a piece of shit and tricking Perturabo into helping him defile a Eldar Crone world and then getting flogged a whole bunch. And then, what's his name? Eidolon shoving spirit stones into all of Fulgrim's like wounds and then into all of his orifices while he just goes, "Oh, no more, no more," and then eventually, like he's just pushing it in, and Eidolon's just like, "One more," and Fulgrim's just like, "Well, maybe just one more," and it's just like, that's good. That's
Oh,
like
God.
the most fucked
Spoiler
up shit.
alert.
Where you're just like, so disturbing.
That's
Well,
well,
maybe
maybe
I
I'll
do
have to
that a
try
little
that.
bit.
Maybe I'll have to try to read it then.
Read it.
Um,
Or listen to it
but
if you like
yeah.
audiobooks.
Yeah, so I've listened to some audiobooks and like I was listening to a bunch of the Siege of Terra ones.
Oh
And I
Mhm.
yeah.
read a couple and we're listening to some and like I maybe listened or listened to or read the first four or something. And they're all right. Some are
Mhm.
better than others. I just felt some of them I would get to the point like when um Angron was in it, it would just be
Mhm.
like the dumbest shit. It's like
Angron is such a
eh,
dumb piece of
it
shit.
would just be like him and Karn, the betrayer, like
Just being dumb
yelling
pieces.
at each other, and it's just like whoever was reading him was probably like Toby Longworth. But like
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
really, really trying, but it was basically just like there's just nothing there. It would just be like
Yeah.
possessed rage, can't think, blood. And
Yeah.
it's just like minutes of that shit. And it's like I'm out.
Uh,
It's
I
hard to
love
get past it.
I love the Horus Heresy series. I listened to the
I don't
Siege
know
of
if
Terra so
that was
hard.
probably clipped the hell out of this mic, but I
It
don't know.
did.
Oh, it's all good. Did you read Saturnine? Saturnine went really fucking hard, and I liked it. Like they were
That
like,
was
"Hey, your
Abnance,
favorite
right?
characters fucking die today."
Yeah, that was one of Abnance ones, right? I think.
Yeah,
It
Saturnine's
was
so good.
Yeah, it was good because I think that was the last one I actually fully read. It was good. Abnett did a
Mhm.
bunch of stuff like depending on the characters, he
Yeah,
would change his writing style to reflect the different types of warfare. And the
yeah.
one Ultramarine one was really cool how he liked to emphasize as the like battle crescendoed and it got like more intense, like all the
Mhm.
sentences would start to
Mm.
get shorter and shorter, such
Yeah.
that like some of the sentences would just be like a single word period, and like
Mhm.
it was very playful with some of that stuff and was like really pretty cool.
The sequence of like Abaddon's like crew like coming up out of like underground into the
Yeah.
just like fucking kill zone. I I don't know how many times like I just listened to that over and over and over again. I was just like, this is so fucking
Well, because yeah,
good.
and because that one I think they tried to write it almost like a aliens type of perspective, like Space
It
Hulk type thing, where it's like
yeah,
not being able to really see things and
yeah, it's
your
so
vision
chaotic.
and stuff cut off. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think
But it's
Abnett
like
is great.
literally Abaddon, like the fucking space marine, like the guy who's on
Yeah.
like every picture of a space marine, like for the Great Crusade. And it's just like, this is the craziest fucking fight I've ever been in. And he's just like talking like, at X amount of seconds, X amount of people, like he's like, so and so died at X amount of second, and then just like seconds later, it's just like so and so got decapitated. X amount of seconds later, I've accepted I'm gonna fucking die. Like it's just so wild because like you can just see this character that you followed for like a fucking decade. Like he's still
Yeah,
that
that's
character,
true.
but like when he like once that like scene hits, it goes so hard. And like Edmund's such a fucking good writer. He gets me too pumped. I'm done talking about Horus Heresy. We can talk about demons and other stuff now.
Well,
Sorry.
so if I guess yeah, like moving into your demons, like what were you trying to explore with them? Like what were some like visual motifs and stuff? So like I know if you look on, you'll be able to see some stuff on our blog and whatnot, but like a lot of the demons have a lot of elements that look like they're blackened wood, like fragments of wood and
Mhm.
stuff. Can you speak to some of that stuff and the kind of where you were
Or
going with
chain.
that? Lots of
Yeah.
chains.
So and the chains, a lot of chains. I was painting chains,
Mm-hmm.
running around with spray paint. The wood. So the very first like demon that I made was the one years ago. That was very like Doom influenced, but I wanted it to be like a really nasty, like pale flesh. And I wanted to make it like it was for like a chaos god, like create your own chaos god from like the Realm of Chaos books. And I came up with like the god of the maimed, like anyone that was like maimed intentionally, like they chose to be maimed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like really fucking gnarly. I don't know why. I can't probably really nail down why that one came to mind, but that's what I came up with. So very quickly, the idea of like chaos as a whole, it's just like, oh yeah, it's a god that like you don't have to worry if like it's real, like it's fucking real. But also, it's a god that like, man, the more attention it shows you, the more you wish that it didn't if you're not crazy, because like their gifts aren't good. Uh, your body is not like their body. They don't know what they're doing. They're just kind of also maybe even not even sentient. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've read like the Aaron Dembski Bowden Black Legion books, but they're amazing and they really go into a lot of like the warp and like warp entities and demons, uh, and kind of just the not circle jerk, but it's kind of a circle jerk. The warp is not definable, but it's also completely definable because it's all of our emotions reflected back at us, but also it's
Hmm.
nonsensical, but you can find places that make perfect sense. It's just like it's everything but nothing. And I really like how it's shown in that. But so long way back too. The God of the Maimed was something I came up with, and I liked the idea that if like this god started to like show you favor, like you would be like doing something. Like I'm thinking like the kind of cast that it would like be mainly dealing with would be like the vast amount of like slaves and like just servants that are working in these giant forges and like giant machines, even if they're not like mechanicum, but like everything is just super industrial. And they're like, yeah, you get caught in a gear, you're gonna have a maimed hand. So I'm assuming that was probably common all over the place in 40k.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of that and being maimed, and the idea of being like a hand, someone who needs their hands, I started to think of like, oh, what of the gifts would probably be like almost just like a black obsidian like rock growing out of your palms, just like crippling your hands, but it would be like a gift. And like everyone around you would be like, oh man, you're destined for greatness. And like all of like the higher ups would come down like looking like the shit pins at all these like slaves, and they're like, that one. And they're like they pull you out because of this like fucking awful bone rot growing out of your hand. They're just like, you are chosen for greatness. And
Despite
then
the
like the
fact
rest
that
of
you
your
can't do
citizens
your
never see you
shit
again.
anymore.
Yeah, you're gonna go do something else. Maybe even lose that hand. Who knows? It won't be good though.
Yeah.
Um, but so the idea was like almost a manifestation of like spite or just like hurt. I guess hurt's like probably like the most. Just like just a big black jagged sharp rock, which is bad. Just kind of like coming out of something, and that being kind of like a manifestation of just negativity, whatever you want it to be, really fucked up. But that is where the whole black rocks coming out of like the maimed model, and I wanted to repeat that. And one of my friends gave me some cholla wood, which is this really weird wood that almost looks like honeycombed. And they gave it to me for my shrimp tanks. But all my like fish tanks are very. I try to have them look as natural as possible, and this stuff does not look natural at all. In a environment sense, but from like when you just look at it, you're like, man, that's weird. It's wood. It's natural. It's very organic. And I was like, hey, that if I smashed it with a hammer and started to make really organic shapes with it, I bet it would kind of look similar to that black rock that I had growing out of those other miniatures, and that would be a very cool theme that I could carry through. And I really wanted for the event for the it's supposed to look very glossy, and then the holes I was going to paint with like Vanta Black 2.0, Muslo Black, just to try and have. I wanted when you looked at it to be very dark, very black, but also I wanted it to mess with your perception. And I do think that that did still come through in a couple spots because like a couple of the pictures, like they don't look right. And it's because there's like two different blacks and one of those blacks is like two-dimensional. Which was, I really wanted it to seem like they didn't belong when you looked at them. I'm sure that was just a giant tangent and a rant, but hopefully that answered the question. The chains, it was another just a sign of submission, which was just to honestly, it's a like a perverse echo of the submission to the emperor that the entire planet has done. The idea pretty much came down to is just if we give birth to demons by our actions, what would an entire planet of ignorance give birth to? And it just, from there, I quickly started to think about what kind of being would be made by that. And then it just kind of turned into, from there, it quickly like devolved into like almost like a self-reflective study. I was going in through a lot of like grief and stuff and just hanging out and playing around in that space way too long, trying to do all the pain. And that helped me really reflect on a lot of stuff. So pretty much I designed these to be almost like a really fucked up mirror. Like the child inverted is almost like a self-portrait, but it's like essentially taking parts of myself that I buried and I was not okay with for a long time, and then like looking them in the face and eventually like being like, okay, I'm comfortable with this, so now I can play with it. So
Well,
taking a thing that I like. Sorry, what?
Can we jump in? So how
Yeah, I'm
many
sorry, I've been on a
demonic
tangent.
entities did
You gotta
you
stop.
create? And then perhaps we could talk about each of them. So the child inverted is the large baby, correct?
Yes. Yeah, the child inverted is the very large baby. And the gate is on its base with it.
Well, perhaps for the people that aren't watching this live and seeing images of some of these things, perhaps
Yeah.
we should describe the child inverted and the gate beside it.
Okay.
So, well, you would do a better job of describing it than I probably.
Let me take a look at this baby here. So the child inverted is quite large. Hello, Margot. Can you all hear Margot?
A little bit.
Yes.
She's screaming. Hey. You can hang out with me. So it's like about 2 feet tall. And it started as a she didn't want to hang out. I think she's gonna leave. Yeah, she's leaving. She's not having it. There's a really silly fish bed that I was hoping she was gonna get in the
I
floor.
like it.
she didn't do it. So yeah, this baby is like 2 feet tall. It is sitting kind of cross-legged, but with one leg kind of raised, with its left arm resting against its knee. Its limbs have been stretched very far, and its skin is very, very, very dark. And then it's wearing what appears to be baby skin over top. Yeah, man, I don't know how to describe it. It's a very big demon that kind of looks like it's wearing a baby. Uh, and it has very
Face.
long
Yeah.
claws.
And like out of its
It's
forehead, there are all these
there are large
horns made out of that
bones.
wood, and
Mhm.
its jaw is almost like distended and open, like a little too wide, with
Yeah,
inset
it's I tried to make it
teeth.
is clear that the mask is like that's not its face. Like its face you can't see, but you can see its teeth. It's wearing a baby mask, and baby mittens and like baby knee pads. It used to wear a baby suit, but I guess it like outgrew it.
Well, yeah, it's wearing like baby gloves, but then from its
Yeah, little baby
fingertips
gloves,
are like really like almost like
long.
sharp needle like claws.
Yeah,
It's
and
pretty
the right
creepy.
hand finger, I wanted to make it clear that like the fingers were like kind of growing out of the baby gloves. So like
Hmm.
the right hand, the fingers are longer than the ones on the left. The left, they're more like retracted into it,
Yeah.
like kind of just resting. Uh, and then the two fingers on the baby's right hand are holding kind of like an okay sign, but it's supposed to be looking at little small keys, uh, which eventually it will have a large amount of keys on a necklace, a shit ton of necklaces with keys um, on its neck, but I didn't have time to do that. Uh, and then the gate is going to have lots of little locks, but I didn't have time to do that either. I barely got all the chains on it.
Which
Well,
the chains are all 3D printed, which is pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, the chains were 3D printed. I had a whole bunch of actual metal chain, and I very quickly realized I am not going to be able to wrap this in real
Hmm.
chain because it's going to weigh so much, and it already weighs so much. It is a heavy model.
Yeah, it's really big, and you kind of describe the size, but it's kind of hard to even imagine it
If
'cause
you've
it's just
ever
so much
played,
bigger
yeah,
than
if you've
most.
played 30K, it is what is called an archdemon of the ruin storm. It is a Titan equivalent. Uh,
Yeah,
so
it's big.
it's big. Um, I don't know how big the actual like Keeper of Secrets models are, but I assume that my Paramour is bigger. But I don't know. I would think so. It's weirdly proportioned, or not proportioned, but
Hmm.
posed. Games
Yeah, and
Workshop's
there'll be
walk.
at least some pictures of all this stuff on our blog, although when exactly all that will show up, because most of the photos will end up being in day 3, because that is when they appeared. But at least in our day 1 post, there's some of the work in progress photos of this baby with Eli working on it. And the other one, which is one of the ones that I really liked, the Paramour you created,
Mhm.
is
Would it
really
be useful
creepy.
for me to go get it? Like I could just like I don't know if it
Yeah, I
probably is.
mean, you could if you wanted to,
Okay,
but it is
let's.
a very creepy.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's, and I don't know exactly how you created, but it's almost like you have like these sensual Barbie legs, but spread out, almost doing like a high kick or something.
it's like a
But
ballerina, a creepy looking
yeah,
ballerina that's twisted in a very unnatural pose, and they have too many arms that are seemingly lacking skin, and their head is twisted and twisted around in a way even an owl couldn't do.
Yeah, and it has a really kind of defleshed looking face with a big toothy grin. Very creepy and weird.
And cloven feet. Yeah, it's very creepy. Like I said, when Eli comes back, we can kind of ask him about sort of what some of the inspiration and stuff for the model was.
Yeah, but it's cool and it's very tall, but it's much more slender than like the baby, for example. But
Yeah, this one is like sized in a way where you could actually fit them on different smaller aspects of like boards and whatnot.
all right, Eli seems to be back here.
Yeah, this thing's face is awful.
Yeah, it is pretty awful, like almost like a defleshed face that's maybe there's a little flesh that is sort of shriveled
Attached.
down as though it's been preserved with um yeah, like chemically preserved. It is very creepy. Well,
It looks like if you put a skin mask on and like we're just going out about your day, having a good time. And eventually it just got a little bit too worn down, so you grab another skin mask and you just slap it over top of that one, and it just keeps
more skin
happening.
masks.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of skin masks.
Well, how would you describe the model, Eli, and what were you kind of going for with this creation?
So the Paramore is the most messed up thing that I've ever made. And it absolutely is a uh essentially taking I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. It's a pretty complicated topic. So Paramore, I've always loved the word Paramore, not because of the band, despite what my wife would tell you. I mean, Paramore's pretty good. Paramore's good. I don't listen to it much. My wife loves it. A lot of people love him. Haley Williams is cool.
Mhm.
I like the word Paramore a lot, though. Paramore comes from French, which means from love, which I'm pretty sure that is from love is what the actual definition, like the changes. Let me make sure of that. Because if I'm telling you wrong, I'm gonna look like a clown. By love. Yeah. By love, from love. So essentially, the whole thing comes down to a paramour was someone that you were with by love, not by like state or by like function. And that is something that I've always thought is very interesting. The idea that like, because it was also implied just from the word that it was not a good thing. It was like not a cool
Mhm.
like it's looked down on to have a paramour, which is wild because it's like, oh, it's the person that you actually have any interest in.
Mhm.
uh so that is something that I've always really liked.
Also,
But
looking at Merriam-Webster, so yeah, through love, it implies a relationship based solely on love, often physical love, rather than on social custom or ceremony. So, like, initially, all of those things, like, sure, of course, a relationship based on love, like, what's bad about that?
yeah,
Though I feel it often has the connotation of somebody who has a lover outside of
of like
wedlock, that
yeah,
sort of thing,
right.
and you're
Yeah,
going against social rules
yeah.
Mhm.
by
That is
loving
what
this
he
person.
implied. Yeah, when everyone hears paramour, like, oh, like a side chick, like a hussy. Uh, but that's
Mhm.
not. I don't think that was the original intent, and I think the
Mhm.
original intent is actually really cool. Like I guess the best example of it that I've can recall, it's like Game of Thrones with Red Viper, Pedro Pascal, his paramour. I also just love Pedro Pascal. He's just a good dude.
Yeah.
But yes, my paramour was just essentially taking the idea of someone that would be whatever you want, no matter what it was,
Mm-hmm.
and like amplifying that ad nauseum until you end up with a horrifying, like extremely lanky monstrosity that looks like it's wearing bundled up clothes because like it doesn't have skin of its own. It wears skin depending on what you want it to look like, including its awful horrifying face. And I did not have time, but the ears are supposed to be nailed on. They're not its ears, it's wearing ears like
That's what you're supposed to do.
you're supposed to do. I like little Nico little cat ears. I think they're cute. Sometimes sexy, sometimes just cute. So I thought I'll put that on there, but it won't be anything I like. It's gonna be something that I really don't like. It's gonna be what I like turned to nauseating, sickening, and I hate it. And I don't want to talk about it. That's what I did.
Well, it's like doing this sort of ballerina like high kick, like so high that it's
Yeah,
Legs
it
being
legs
also
are
torn off
like
almost.
tearing off and its flesh is rending apart. Like they don't even quite attach anymore. In
no.
like
Yeah, I wanted it to be very clear that it was like it's not flexible. It just broke its leg and just kept bringing it forward. Uh, and then I
then with
really
the
wanted
creepy
the angle.
arm, the flesh arm tendony ligament
Yeah,
arms with these long fingers that like they're like facsimiles of fingers, but maybe aren't really fingers. But
yeah. They have
and
six digits. I tried to everything is very I really tried to nail home like the numerology. I love the demonic numerology and all that stuff is very fun. So
Mhm.
I think that it's very important that the number 6, which is Slanesh's holy number, be represented as many times as I can. So it's got 6 limbs. It's got 6 digits on each hand. I'm trying to. There's somewhere else that's got 6. I don't remember. I
Well,
think it's
tell
just the
me
fingers. Oh, each
the
finger has
oh
6. Each finger has 6 parts, which is why they're so long and they
yeah.
bend really not good.
Well, the
Yeah,
legs also have like
they
like
are covered in O-rings,
yeah.
which is typically in bondage. It is used for cabling. And I thought, well, it would be absolutely covered in those because you never know when you need to hook part of your skin suit onto something. And I had kind of toss the idea around of instead of just having them as rings, having little bells tied to each of them. And I'm still very much on the fence of that. Uh,
You need a lot of little
Be a
bells.
lot.
it'd be a lot of little bells, but I think it would be very good.
Mhm.
That the only other choice would be to have a collar with a bell on it, and I don't know which would be more upsetting.
The little bells, I think, would be more
I
upsetting.
think the little bells
Yeah.
too. I think it needs a collar, but it not with a little bell. It needs to have bells all over it. Yeah. And also, I didn't have time to add. Man, somebody fucked up and let something that like the algorithm has kept from me for years. But I just learned what horse feet look like when they are born, and hot damn, they're so scary. Um, and it's gonna have the nice little. They look like little flesh flipper, like just like kind of like they're awful. So look that up, everybody.
Oh boy.
Whoa, they're
Oh yeah. So I got to put some of those on it. I didn't have time to, but as soon as I saw that that was a thing, I was like, that's very unpleasant. I got to put it on my paramour.
yeah, that
Oh,
is
also,
unpleasant.
Oh my goodness.
she was supposed to be the like inside, like she's supposed to be doing this. Like the whole thing is like bent backwards. Like that's the front, but it's doing a back bend at this insane angle that is very I mean, there's just no way that you would be able to stand on your toes with all of your body weight over here and also bend your back. It's a demon though. And then I wanted to make it look that from the angle, you can't really see because this camera is not detailed enough, but I wanted it to look like from the angle of where a human would be, this awful giant thing was looking down at them with its like void
Yeah,
black.
no, it's
God,
it
the
it it really
baby
achieves
horse
it.
feet are, oh gosh,
Oh yeah.
they're
See, if
bad.
I had
Oh,
had more
those are
time,
gross. Yeah,
would have had some
that's
nice
pretty
flippers.
gross. But yeah,
And also I wanted to make sure that there were no breasts. That's another thing that I really set out. I wasn't gonna have a single boob on a single one of these models, but I wanted everyone to look and be like, "Oh shit, that's Slanesh. That's fucked up." Uh,
well, yeah, because I think the Paramore is like the most
mhm.
like obvious
Yeah.
Slanesh thing, but
Yeah.
it's still not that obvious. Like it's
No.
not like the GW Slanesh stuff, and I appreciate that, and I like that all of these things are r- incredibly creepy and weird, but aren't just like super typecasted that like this is
Yeah.
Slanesh, this is that, and it seems to, as a result, like hit like a more primal,
Mhm.
uh, frightening thing
Yeah. To
to it, and
be
I think are just much better.
Thank you. It's instead of whatever Games Workshop is going for with all their boobs on it, it was taking something of me coming to terms with being okay with who I am, and being like, "Hey, I think this is cool. This is attractive," and just distorting it and twisting it. So I like cat boys a lot. I like cat boys. They're just cute. I have a print that I'm a big fan of. Big fan. Very cute. Like the rest of my like studio is just nothing but really fucking dark shit. And then I've got this really cute little picture of a little cat boy. Um, and that really, I kind of found those around the time that I was really going through some shit and realizing that my opinions on gender and on sexuality, on everything else, were not normal, I guess, from what everyone else thinks. Fuck it. And being like, that's cool. I'm cool with it. And then playing in that space. So it went from being that really cute little cat boy to this, as Slanesh. So I guess, I guess that's why it doesn't have boobs, Games Workshop.
I mean, that is better, and in some sense, a lot of these they're remind me, not that they really look anything like this, but the closest thing that I can think of in other media might be to like Berserk, the God Hand in Berserk, how
Oh,
like just creepy, weird, and different all of them look. Not that any of these really look like that, but I think
I
uh
wanted each to be very unique.
it seems like it's sort of in that vein of just these otherworldly entities that are kind of unknowable but terrifying in that their weird visage with some elements look kind of normal but then not at all, and
Yeah.
it I feel it reminds me of that type of aesthetic, even though again they don't, each one of them looks quite different from the other creation and not really much like the ones in Berserk, but it's still,
Mhm.
I get kind of some of that energy in them.
Well, so there's
Oh,
like there's one that's, to me it's almost like a lumbering ogre that like leans its head back and its mouth opens, and then all the shards of
yeah.
like black obsidian and stuff like
I just
come
stuffed
erupting
down in there.
outward, or like, yeah. That one
Yeah. So
is
that one is really messed up. That's the concubine.
okay.
So they all have like actual demon names. Like I came up with like all of these demons like on paper before like I started to like make them. And they all are very unique, and there are 6 of them. So because again, it's supposed to be a self-portrait in a really fucked up weird way. I really tried to lean into that, which I think is very, very Slanesh. I think I tried to handle this in as meta of a way as possible to just get down to my own trauma and just be like, yeah, Slanesh would love this. So pretty much they all are different and different facets of different things, different traumas. But of course, the biggest one, and so the demon that is like being nurtured off the Vastarian is the child inverted. And the idea of it's just like, okay, I'm bringing my demons. I'm making this child inverted as like a kind of a weird self-portrait, and kind of like sharing it with the community. If I am the child inverted, I am so fucking vain. One of my heralds is gonna be me in an outfit because like it's just who I am. And if you meet me, you know that I'm pretty over the top. I'm very energetic, and I like to talk. I like to talk a lot. I'm rambling a lot. But yeah, so one of the six is kind of like the manifestation of the demon itself. So like the whole time it was there, it didn't do anything. It just kind of like played with keys and unlocked these little keys. But technically, like it's not even there. It's like hasn't even been born yet. But the way that the work works, it's more of just like a psychic like memory of things to come, perhaps. Whereas the gate is absolutely real, and it's like keys are being unlocked, and every key that is unlocked, another one of these demons that is like slaved to the child inverted is released onto Vastarian. So like each of these, like the first thing that shows up is the the baby in the gate. They start unlocking keys. That's when the paramour, the child inverted's most like reliable commander, is sent to deal with the lighthouse. That is when the concubine, which is the awful one that is wrapped in chains and has just shit ton of cholla wood shoved down into its mouth, which is even more disturbing when you understand that it is a cast of my wife's mouth. From when we got married, they do the thing for brides where like, yeah, we'll give you like a free teeth cleaning, that kind of thing, like just because you're getting married. And it's like, oh cool. So like they make casts of your teeth, and like when they did it to my wife, she was like, can I have those? And they were like, why? And she was like, oh, my husband will really want those. He's a fucking weirdo. And she's right. So of course I put them on that monster. And then it was really weird when I was like, man, I'm kind of finding out how much of this wood I could shove like in my wife's mouth. Like, because this is her mouth. But it's also just like mouths don't open like that. So, and I would never do that. I love my wife. I don't have enough cholla wood anyway. Ha ha ha. That's a terrible joke. But yeah, so the concubine is supposed to be almost like a throwaway version of the paramour. Like it's just all chained up and bound, and it just clearly is just, it only has one eye that is just kind of like very bulging, and it just kind of runs around slamming itself into things. It's just it and the other yeah, the very big demon. They killed a lot of people in like the church, but it wasn't because they're like extremely like dangerous. Well, they are, but it's just like they're very incompetent. Like they just exist, and that's like dangerous to be around. But they're very incompetent.
Yeah, I feel one of the better photos I got from the event is one of Bill's like little halfling models, like just being towered above by two of the demonic entities. That yeah, very, very distressing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when Steve and Isaac were shooting at it, and they were just like, "What do we need to wound it?" And I was like, "Just roll the dice." Like they were like,
You're not
"Oh,
wounding it.
And it was like, oh, you rolled a 6, and it was just like, oh, it did do something. Like it's just like it's getting all worked
It
up. Like
liked
it
it.
felt like it liked it. Yeah, that was essentially uh Isaac like pissed it off enough. Like the one that like the big cage, I'll just call it the big cage. That looks kind of like a snail.
Mm-hmm.
Thought I heard a cat having a hairball in the distance, but I don't think it's happening. We're good. Um, yeah, like the one that looks kind of like a big hermit crab.
Mm-hmm.
That one, Isaac like shot like he only had like a bolt pistol, and it's just like he was talking about. He's like, "Yeah, I've only got a bolt pistol, so I'll just use that." And it's just like, I mean, that's what it worked. Like he shot it, and
Mm-hmm.
he just kept rolling sixes, and it's just like, yep, you keep hitting it and just pissing it off, and then eventually it just runs straight, and like they just like jump out of the way, and it just smashes into the other one because it can't see where it's going, because its eyes are covered by this giant like dome. Uh, so yeah, they just kind of slam into each other in the cathedral for a while, and then Isaac
What's
teleports.
the hermit crab-esque thing with like part of a human skull on its back and the cage over the front? What's name do you have for that? So that we had talked about the concubine with your wife's
Mhm.
mouth and all the wood erupting out of it. The
That one,
baby,
The
talked about the
paramour.
paramour. We've talked
mhm.
about the child inverted. So now hermit crab-esque thing with the cage over its front and the skull shell back.
So the the one that looks kind of like a lion was spite, and then the one that looks like a hermit crab is frustration. Uh,
Okay.
and they're both very much like in a nod kind of to Geiger. Their designs are very much based off of male chastity devices. Uh, and they are very much a commentary on my opinions of toxic masculinity,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
both in our hobby and just in our world as a whole. Uh, and that really like the whole vibe of it was just like I guess me trying to explain that femininity does not cannot be summed up in like boob, like just lots
Yeah.
of boob or boob. Like that's if you're going to like put boobs on the model, it's just like I don't know. You could do something better with the model and it could have boobs, but it's just like that's
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be the only gimmick. And I really wanted to express femininity and masculinity as concepts with Slanesh in ways that I don't think have been explored before, but that even if you're not like, oh, I get it, looking at it, like you kind of do because it's like almost like primal. I really tried to like
Mm-hmm.
simplify it down to as meat and bones of it as I could, of what makes you uncomfortable and why. Yeah, I tried to play on that a lot. So yeah, those
Yeah,
two
I
are
feel
inspiration.
people can probably see photos on our blog eventually. I think you will get these impressions just looking at them.
Mhm. They look very. They don't look good. You look at them and you're like, man, I don't think I feel good about that.
I don't like it.
No.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I wanted you to look at them and be like, that upsets me.
Yeah, no, and I feel they accomplished that. They accomplished that for sure. And
Well,
yeah,
thank
I hope but yeah, we'll be able to have obviously more photos of this stuff on the
Mhm.
blog, and hopefully we can write more about it and also have some narrative stuff kind of explaining some of the final moments and the terror they
Mhm.
all caused.
Oh, absolutely. I apologize if I rambled for too long.
No,
It's
no, that's what we wanted you here for.
yeah. I definitely when I messaged you earlier about trying to like I don't know what I should start writing. It's just like should I write about the process of like what I was thinking about? Should I write about how I built them? Should I write because it's
All of
just
that I think is interesting.
all of it was very uh in hindsight, I think the only reason is just like I've just been wanting to do this for so long, and like I just finally had like the like everything lined up perfectly to where it was just like I was firing on all cylinders like from the moment I looked back and there's a picture on October 1st, sorry, no, October 2nd of the baby, and it is at that point like a couple pieces of a very realistic baby doll cut up and like kind of me holding it to like a piece of metal rod with a bunch of foam and Reynolds wrapped
I
around it
have a
and an
vision.
old clock. And it's like this clock is like at a weird angle nailed next to the baby on like a hexagon. And that's it. So like that was October 2nd. I sent you guys that and I said, hey, look at this demon I made.
Yeah, no, so you did a lot in a very short amount of time
Mhm.
that we appreciate.
Oh, absolutely. I loved it. I've been wanting to do it for years. I think that's why I was able to knock them out as quick as I did. So I'm
Well,
really looking forward to
yeah,
smoothing
yeah.
things.
Yeah, I
And
look forward to you continuing to work on them and fine tune some of the stuff that at some point maybe be able to do a photo shoot with them to help do the models more justice than I think. So I don't think I quite captured it in the photos that we got, but
Well, I think
Oh,
also even in the game setting or people there playing, since there was so much going on, I don't think almost no one got enough time to really study
mhm.
all of them and like think about like what was going on and what they were representing and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
but to some extent I think it add to some of the chaotic nature of like these horrible entities appearing and like I don't know how to approach this or do it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it I think in its own way I think work to further the imagery and the design of
Mhm.
them.
I think Evan, I don't know if I've told you all this, but I've told Evan this numerous times. Evan won Vastarian when he asked me to do a perception check. Uh because I was just like, this guy gets it. Like listening to you all like talking to Isaac about how the end of the game, it seemed like it was just like everything was breaking down. So it was just like we're not
Mhm.
even using the same rules. We're like having to like think about things differently. It was just like that was just so beautifully done and so naturally done. And I know that that's what we wanted,
Yeah.
but I still am just like, how the hell did that even remotely work?
Well,
But
because
like,
Evan was doing a bunch of cool stuff, trying to
yeah,
see like if he could see the little locks and keys and stuff, and wanted to try to see if he could
yeah,
influence their manifestation in reality by like shooting some of those and stuff, which I thought was a fun
yeah. Like he very
element.
quickly realized, oh shit, I see what's going on. This is not good.
But yeah, I'm happy how, because yeah, we were a bit uncertain as to how it would all
Hmm.
transpire and if we could convey some of these broader themes and how they're not really equipped to handle it. And I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, from a like resolution standpoint, I absolutely loved how the tarot cards. I enjoyed how they were drawn. The pictures of me that were taken shortly after when I drew the card and killed the beast. I looked so defeated. I'm just so tired. I'm not sad. I don't want anyone to think that. I'm, I was really pumped. I was like, yeah, we did it. We killed the demons that I brought. I'm glad to be part of it, guys.
Well,
But
did
yeah,
they really kill them? They just
no, it's just
are they
they
ever
just
killed?
they just
yeah, they just
vanished them.
kept the baby from essentially being born.
Well, I'm kind of excited about going forward with this and how we can continue to push this and how like I don't think they're
Mhm.
gone. It's just
Oh yeah,
there
the
was
baby can always come back.
yeah, and there was enough was done to stave off the worst for at least a short time, but I
Mhm.
am excited to see what more can be done with it and how we can keep pushing this stuff. I think will be fun and will be a good opportunity to keep developing some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
What did there was only one Inquisitor in the event, and they sort of teleported in towards the end in an effort to thwart the demons, and that was one of sort of the, we'll say, one of the set piece moments where we were trying to use that as a means to tell the people there that your conventional warfare is probably not going to be very effective, because they teleport in and then try and almost like do like something like an Eldar Mind War or something with the Paramour and get fucking trounced.
Yeah.
Peeled like a banana.
Yeah.
But not the way you would want or think.
No, yeah.
And if you can come up with how you want to be peeled like a banana, let me know.
I
can't think of
have
one.
a funny photo of the Paramore kind of to the side where you can see some of its weird warped proportion
Mhm.
with the Inquisitor beneath it, but then two of its arms, which are kind of like going above its head, it nicely is framing Bill's face. It's out of focus nicely, and I thought it was kind of funny.
That's so good.
That
Where is this picture?
I have it up
hopefully
right now. If
it'll
you
show up, or eventually people will be able to see it on the blog. But I specifically selected that one just because like I thought that framing was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're kind of hard to photograph because they're just such
there's a
crazy
lot going
models.
on.
They definitely did nothing to like help you like stay focused on like models that are like really like small. It was just
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Like
Well, it's
it's gonna
funny
be
because the majority of the photos, or a large portion of the photos I took throughout the weekend, were with a 105 millimeter like macro lens that
Mhm.
allowed me to like kind of really focus in on individual models and what they were doing on the battlefield, and that worked well for like this 28 to 32 millimeters, but
Mhm.
not it wasn't as good for such large models. So I shifted to like a 50 millimeter lens for most of that, which was good, but yeah, it's different. It was like a different challenge, but
Mhm. No, the pictures you took are amazing. Uh, looking at them, it's just like it's just crazy how good they look when I like know what the situation was in the store and what you were taking, like how you were taking them. She's like,
because
man, I
most
don't
of the
know what that.
previous day's stuff, it was easier to try to compose stuff. Like I had a flash and a diffuser and so forth.
Mhm.
But for the last game, since so many people were involved between separate boards, it was much more chaotic and harder to photograph because I couldn't be as particular about stuff, and there were always people kind of in the background and so forth, particularly when the
Oh,
models, like the lighthouse board itself, are so large that it's
Yeah.
harder to isolate things. And then at 50 millimeters, like that focal length, it more is in focus. So there are just lots of things that converge to make it a little bit more challenging. But I still think there's some nice photos that somewhat touch on what was happening, which
mhm.
I'm glad for. But people can look forward to seeing more of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's a picture in here of Martin, Adam, and Brad playing, but like the center of the picture is me eating pizza. But like I'm not the one you took a picture of, but I'm in the very center eating pizza
Nice.
in the game store. That's good.
Nice.
I like it. Brad is a fun guy.
He is a
Mm-hmm.
fun guy.
I love that guy. Wizard Fight's one of the best things I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah, it was
Like,
fun.
holy shit, that guy. Someone just like sign that guy up to like make games because he just is going to print you money, at least from me. I'm going to give you the money. I'll give Brad money for game ideas if they're all as fucking good as Wizard Fight.
I feel it was a fun idea, kind of taking some general archetypes that GW has played with before, but being able to use it in this setting with people who are primed to be a little bit more imaginative with it and GM it,
Well,
like be creative with it, really worked well,
yeah,
I think.
it's one of those things that it's just like if you put that in like I was gonna say Dungeons and Dragons, but that's not it. Like really any rule book that you could kill somebody with because it's that fucking thick. Like it's the kind of thing you would put in there and no one would like it. They would all hate it. But like if you put it in something like in a Merkborg, it's the fucking best rule. Like it's so cool because it's just like, yeah, no, it's not supposed to be balanced. If you wanted balanced, you should have gone somewhere else. We don't have that.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't have that. We have Nightmare Cat Boys and Wizard fights.
Yeah, the best things.
Yeah, that I think Wizard Fight was one of the triumphs of the event. It really helped usher in the notion of like psychic warfare and like bad stuff happening.
Well, and it allowed, like, there was still like a rules basis to it, but it allowed for being creative and trying to like describe what was happening, that then pushed into like a larger meta structure that allowed other people to use it and see how that would affect things, to then push up to maybe trying to use that against these demons, but then it just failing spectacularly. But then, like, okay, well, how else can we approach these things? Which it was just fun.
It was just a very fun game, very fun weekend. I would have liked to have talked with people more, but I was like hiding in a back like room painting, like a crazy person. But that was also really fun. Because every now and then someone would come in and be like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
thanks. I've been doing this in like private for like 3 months. It's been killing me."
I guess that's something that it's always like difficult. There's so many people involved. Like there's never enough time to see and chat with everybody. But
That's
I'm
certainly
thankful that we got as much as we did, and furthermore can continue to reflect and chat with people like yourself about it, how it went, our thoughts on it, and maybe what we can do going forward. But I guess with that, we've been chatting for a little while here. Like, are there any like final like words you'd like to state about what we've been talking about, or what you look forward to doing in the future, or anything to that extent?
I look forward to doing anything else Vastarian wise. I also didn't even mention this entire time the Walker, but
Oh yeah, no, that another
Kelly
crazy creation of yours.
Kelly painted this crazy giant walker for me, like while I was like trying to rush to paint the demons the night before I left. I got like 5 hours sleep before I was down at Johnny's. And my wife has never painted anything like Warhammer related. This was her first miniature, so of course we started off with a colossal
one
scratch
bigger
built.
than like probably most people have ever painted.
Yeah, it's bigger than any Warhammer model that they make, except maybe a Warlord. A Warlord might be bigger, but not like only height, like not like everything else. It was really big.
It's kind of like a big AT-AT.
Yeah,
At least
I
that,
really
or at least
love
partially, in the
sand
sense that
crawler.
it has like 4 legs and it's
Yeah, it was like an AT-AT sandcrawler baby that like lived at the bottom of
that's
the
good.
ocean.
And
And I
decided
wanted
it wanted to get involved in some of this stuff.
I
Wanted to
wanted it to
say
have
hi to
like
people.
kind of shrimp legs because I love scrimp. But yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah, I just want to mention that Kelly painted that and it's awesome. So I'm
It is
gonna fix
awesome.
that and hope to have it rampaging its way nonchalantly across boards elsewhere.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It didn't really do much. Luke killed himself on it, like one of his models, and that was real cool. But that's like all it did. It just kind of walked. It was fun.
Yeah, unknowably marching forward. Well, hopefully we can do more with it at some
We
point.
should.
Greg got some fun photos of some of Johnny's cultists
Hmm.
jumping around on top of it.
Yeah, they crashed a plane into it, jumped out. It was a wild game. It was a very fun game. It was good.
That's great.
It was good times. It was a great weekend. I am very thankful for you all putting it on and getting us all involved in it. And again, thank you for having me and listening to me rant. I hope I didn't go for too long.
No, that's what we were hoping for, and hope we can continue to do it in the future and
Mm-hmm.
do more Vastarian related stuff, and maybe even tie it more into Phaeton and some of your other creations and how this influences some of that. But that can be for another day.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for being here, Eli, and we will talk to everybody again soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh yeah.
That portion is recorded.
Chill.
It's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Completed.
Maybe we want to
Wizard
just end the stream here.
We probably do. Thanks everybody for listening and joining us tonight. Yeah, keep